Welcome top news today.
Democrats are just about as likely as Republicans to say they plan to vote in this year's congressional elections, a break from the two previous midterm elections, in which Republicans were significantly more inclined to vote, according to a Washington Post-ABC News poll conducted in January. Democratic congressional leaders hope anti-Trump sentiment can boost the party to regain control of the House and possibly the U.S. Senate, and the poll finds many fellow partisans feel a similar urgency. Just over half of Democratic-leaning registered voters, 51%, say it is more important to vote this year than in previous elections, compared with 34% of Republican-leaning voters who say the same. In the past two midterm years, Republicans parlayed heightened conservative enthusiasm and disapproval of President Barack Obama into consecutive victories and control of the House and Senate. Post-ABC polls in 2014 found that, on average, Republican-leaning voters were 10 points more likely to say they were absolutely certain to vote than were voters who leaned toward the Democratic Party. In 2010, Republicans held a 12-point advantage on this question. With full poll results, how the poll was conducted, but turnout appears to be shaping up differently this year, with President Trump in the White House and most Americans disapproving of his performance. 65% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independent voters say they are certain to vote, compared with 63% of Republican-leaning voters. Among Republicans, motivation to vote appears to be down from the past two cycles, while Democrats have changed less, although this may reflect the fact that the surveys in previous years were conducted later in those election years. Turnout in midterm elections overall is far lower than turnout in presidential election years, with fewer than 4 in 10 eligible voters casting ballots in 2014. Enthusiasm to vote this year ranges sharply within each party. The Post-ABC poll finds 54% of Americans who say that at the least they will probably vote also say it is more important to vote in 2018 than in previous midterm elections, while 44% say it is about as important as in the past and only 1% say it is less important. Within the GOP, Trump's most devoted supporters are also most committed to turning out, with 74% of Republican-leaning voters who strongly approve of his job performance saying they are certain to turn out. But among the more than 4 in 10 Republican-leaning voters who approve somewhat of Trump or disapprove, fewer than half say they are certain to vote, 48%. Two Democratic-leaning groups that have turned out at lower rates in past years also expressed tepid interest in voting this year. Fewer than half of registered voters ages 18–39, 46%, say they are certain to vote, compared with 68% of voters ages 4,000 and 64 and 77% of seniors. And non-white voters are 9 points less likely than white to say they plan to vote, 56% to 65%. Low turnout among either group could weaken Democrats' chances this fall, as younger voters favor Democrats by a 20-point margin when asked which party's candidate they support, while non-whites favor Democrats by a 50-point margin. The Post-ABC poll found Democrats holding a 12-point advantage over Republicans when registered voters were asked which party's candidates they will support in their congressional districts, the so-called generic ballot question that has been correlated with the number of seats parties win. Democrats' advantage has been somewhat smaller in other polls in January, standing at 8 points in an average of recent national polls analyzed by the Post. Election analysts forecast that Democrats need a 6 to 8 point advantage in generic polls to win in a majority of House districts. New breakdowns from the poll show that Democrats hold a 37-point advantage among voters in congressional districts classified as solid for Democrats by the Cook Political Report, with 64% supporting Democrats and 27% backing Republicans. In solid Republican districts, Republicans hold a narrower 9-point advantage, 49% to 40%. The race is tight in districts that are more competitive, with 45% of registered voters supporting Democrats and 42% backing Republicans. Among 86 districts classified as likely for either party, leaning one way or toss-up, 62 are held by Republicans. If each party wins all of its safe seats, Democrats need to win a majority of all competitive seats to take control of the House. Twice as many Americans say they prefer to elect representatives to Congress who have experience in Congress over newcomers to politics, 58% to 29%. More than three-quarters of self-identified Democrats say they prefer experienced candidates. Just over half of independents and fewer than half of Republicans say they prefer experience, while more than one-third of both groups say they want people who are new to politics. The partisan split on this question mirrors the 2016 campaign, when Democrat Hillary Clinton contrasted her resume of working in government with the resume of Trump, who most Americans said was not qualified for office. The post-ABC poll was conducted January 15, 18 among a random sample of 1,005 adults reached on cell phones and landline phones. The margin of sampling error for overall results is plus or minus 3.5 percentage points, and 4 percentage points among the sample of 846 registered voters. Emily Guskin contributed to this report.